Not exactly hidden. Roth and Andrea both look back at the third member of their group. The kid was cute and all, but Darechar is young. Young and while amphibious, is clearly happier on land. That, and he has a Lydrus mother. The multi-bodied race are ambush predators and just not made for long swims. Short bursts? Certainly. Suddenly snapping out of a crevice and grabbing something tasty? Undoubtedly. Swimming down from a great distance deep underwater to sneak up on an expected criminal fortress? Not so much. They had entered the water 2 islands over and were skimming the seafloor towards the building site. Already in the distance, they could see a large structure rising from the sea below. The mission was simple. Get to a branch of the structure, apply a simple patch to the side, and leave. The patch was apparently something from the bright forest, and it would teleport spores around itself. Once it hit air, it would start to spread and grow the spore into a highly virulent but harmless fungus. A fungus that would spread out like an infection and give the sorcerers who were adapting and adjusting to the bright forest an in and a straight-up map of the entire facility. Once they had that, they would soon have it up to date and live as well. "Are you all right?" Roth asked slowly. One of the brilliances of galactic trade was that it still worked underwater, albeit slower so you could properly set up the vibrations. "I'm fine. I've just been setting something up for later," Darechar Crushclaw states. "Setting what up?" Andrea asks. "Likely just a distraction, but maybe something more," Darechar states. "I don't like surprises when depth charges and torpedoes are potentially involved," Andrea says, and Darechar grins. "I've been spreading the bright forest spores to the local life, slowly expanding its power over them and shifting it from fungal to fauna, which when they die and decay will spread further and then slowly spread through the ecosystem. If we can't do things fast, this will let us build up an army surrounding this place," Darechar explains, and Andrea and Roth spare each other a knowing glance. "Also, you want to ride whatever sea life is down here like in that movie preview," Roth says. "You saw that?" Darechar asks in an excited tone. "Yes, I did." "So you're the one who actually pulled off the taming of the giant monster bit, right?" "Oh yes, it's easy with the forest to help you. It spreads into the smaller life that eats it, which is then consumed by larger and larger life. There are no giant monsters here though, not right now anyways," Darechar explains as he swims up to a boulder on the bottom. Do either of you sense that?" "Sense what?" Andrea asks. "Ah, that's what's going on. It's not coming from me or any of us. Something I've brought in has sensed it," Darechar says and holds out his hand. A tiny crab unburies itself from the ocean floor and swims upwards to rest in his palm. "You sensed it, little one." He then examines the tiny creature closely. Those pores, they sense something other than axiom or heat, don't they? The tiny creature predictably doesn't answer, but it does start eating voraciously of the slight fungal growth sprouting on Darechar's palm. "Yes, you sense something on the electromagnetic spectrum, little friend. We've stumbled on something." He sinks lower into the water and releases the tiny crab and its bounty. It scuttles closer to the boulder to get out of the currents as it eats more and more, getting its fill as best it can before letting go of the feast and getting away from what will surely lure in bigger predators. Then a few other crabs of its kind scuttle up and start eating of the leftover feast. We're directly over a power line from what I can tell. It goes crosswise and we haven't passed over it yet, Darechar explains, pointing to a completely innocent-looking place in the seafloor and tracing it back and forth. "It's too simple to be a sensory line, but it's powering something. It's interesting, but so long as we're not tripping an alarm, we should focus on delivering the patch. Then we come back and examine the outer defenses. We're hyper-low profile now, and they'll need to see us in order to tell we're not just more fish. We don't blow that by getting distracted," Roth says, and Darechar nods. "Good point. He concedes, and they all start swimming again. The slower Derchar is pushing himself off the stones on the ocean floor as they slowly approach the massive building. Then all of a sudden, Andrea grabs them both and shoots behind the largest outcropping. "Drone," she says simply, and all three of them flatten against the walls. In the shadows, they come inches from a pale green beam sweeping by. Once it leaves, they all poke their heads out and watch the nearly invisible sleek shape slice through the water. I recognize those. Aqua's Industries Nature Observation Drone. Half the wildlife organizations that do anything in the water use them, Roth says. That green-hued scanning beam was not out of the box, I assume, Derchar says as he floats up a bit and the two girls shoot past him. Not in the slightest. A scanner like that is far too powerful for wildlife use. We're stumbling onto secrets, Roth answers. Stumble nothing. We're digging it out. Come on, slowpoke. Andrea bids Derchar, who just chuckles before he sinks a little and launches off the ground. None of them are using heavy axiom. None of them have electronics on. None of them are even wearing armor or carrying weapons. Even if that scanner had spotted them, it could have still mistaken them for sea life. Closer and closer they creep, the singular structure rising up and up to reveal itself to be a massive reinforced dome with numerous buildings inside. They duck behind a large patch of currently dormant coral and debate. Okay, so it's a dome. Clear glass. If anyone's walking around and getting some fresh air, Andrea begins, or just admiring the scenery or taking a break or anything, then we've got a problem. We're zero tech right now to slip through all scans. But how do we get this patch to the side of that dome and apply it without it or us being spotted? Andrea asks. I think I can. It'll need a few minutes to prepare, though, Derchar says, and both girls look at him. I've already controlled some local sea life. Give me a bit of time to get more and they can carry it up and then also dump some other stuff around it so it's lost in the mix. It's not perfect. They'll peel it off sooner or later, but they'll mistake it for some sea-borne garbage that got stuck to the side. That's how the patch is designed, isn't it? Yes, just a bit of fungus on tape, Andrea says, bringing out the sealed container. It's the most high-tech thing they currently have on them. Even their clothing is simple and designed to blend. Good, I'll be back for it in a bit. We'll make a low call if we see a drone, a series of clicks when it's clear, Roth says, and Derchar nods. He may be amphibious thanks to his mother, but he's still an apuk. These girls have far better underwater senses than him. Andrea rises up and looks around. She lets out some clicking sounds, and Derchar rises up as well and starts swimming along the reef with Roth nearby on lookout. It takes him a bit to find anything really strong, and then he dodges something that comes shooting out of a hole in the reef at him. He barely catches the thing in time, mostly because its first bite is almost nothing but shirt. It gets some blood, but he fights it off and gets a good look at the thing. Serrated beak, bad attitude, long, strong body. Whatever it is, it's not messing around, but it instantly slinks back into its hole almost right away. An ambush predator, one native to the reef and nasty, which means he has an in with the creature. He drifts away from the entrance somewhat and begins to spawn spores. The bright forest is different from the dark forest in so many ways. Far more questions than answers. Where the dark forest is akin to a kindly but stern grandfather, the bright forest feels more akin to a peer. Someone your own age that wants to have fun and wants you to have fun. In short, after a drunken night, the dark forest picks you up from the drunk tank. The bright forest is in there with you and wants to do it again. The slight axiom discharge of a mushroom being woodwalked to him is interesting, but also very subtle, followed by him letting it drift away into a current, and its behavior is erratic like an injured fish that, snap, he can outright hear the beak close on the mushroom, and then the creature is back in its hole as if it were an elastic band. The mushroom is spat out a moment later. It's a carnivore. But the bright forest got in. He feels the entity connect. It's ravenous and perpetually in a foul mood. Everything inside the hole is itself, and outside the hole is nothing but food and competition. It did, however, gouge out the hole itself. Apparently at the end of its tail is a brutal jagged pick that carves through coral and weaker stone to make its little ambush den. He can convince it he's neither food nor a threat, but anything more than that is going to take a lot of coaxing and persuasion. Still, looking at the creature head on, if it carries anything, it's going to break it. Perhaps this creature is useful as a distraction or a booby trap. But not. Roth lets out a crooning call and he shoots to the side and ducks behind the coral. Fuck, another drone is coming and crunch! The snapping eel just bit it hard. It thrashes to the side a few times and the drone is torn to pieces in moments. The pieces and components are spat out and the perpetually pissed off creature retreats back into its hole. Well, that was nice of it. There are some clicks later and Darechar slips out and reaches into the hole with the grumpy creature and gives it a gentle rub. It is an extremely confusing but not unpleasant thing for the being, and he swims away. The hell was that thing? I don't know what it's called, but it's too cantankerous and pissed off to carry anything gently. Can you spot anything? I've got decent vision, but there's a lot you're not seeing. There are a few things near the seafloor that are camouflaged and look biggish. Maybe one of them? She asks, and he looks down. Between the reefs, he sees bars of sand and looks back to her. Look closer. Don't you see the pattern? He sinks a little but stays a respectful distance away from the bottom. There is something odd going on. Something isn't adding up, but all he sees is sand in a wavy pattern. A wavy pattern that keeps breaking and resuming every. He floats back up and away from the pod of creatures that's resting on the bottom of the sea. Whatever they are, they're a perfect match for the surrounding dirt, and while he can't fully see them, he's almost certain they see him. Some kind of ray. They're not buried, they just have the right pattern to match the seafloor. Perfect. Even if they can't carry the patch, they can act like a big screen to let me put it on myself. Darechar says just before Roth suddenly pulls him to the side and he swims with her and undercover as another drone passes by overhead. It scans the area where the previous drone was destroyed, its beam brighter than ever, and then it moves on. They must have lost other drones to those creatures. Lucky us. Darechar notes as he conjures numerous soaked and sodden mushrooms in tiny chunks that he sends downwards to the hidden rays. Even when they move to cover the food, they're still almost invisible. It's actually vaguely terrifying. It takes a few minutes, but soon enough, an entire pod of the sand rays starts listening to him. They're a great deal calmer and more agreeable than the snapper eel, and surrounded by an entourage, Darechar and Roth return to Andrea. Oh, very nice. I've spotted a few people walking around, but the distance makes things a little hard. I can tell you no one's too close to the glass, though. Good. All three of us swim up with the pod, apply the patch, throw some sand and stones on it as well, and then with the pod we all swim away and then make our exit. Sound good? Darechar asks. You got it, Crushclaw. Let's do this.